In spite of being cut off from the sunlight, the party woke at dawn. Miria, Edric, and Kale sat in a circle, studying their spellbooks in the single pool of light falling from the ceiling. While in the shadows, Raxon maintained his armor and his weapons, oiling, sharpening, mending, as he muttered and whispered to Burl, trying to get a response, trying to see if his cousin was still somewhere in that strange husk that stood before them. After a time, the magicians closed their books and rose to their feet. Raxon cinched and tightened straps on his armor. Then they addressed the silent, staring, vine-covered creature that once was Burl. "All right, we're ready." The short walk through the jungle that followed was in silence. The trees here grew tightly together, creating shadows, and cobwebs hung from many of the branches. The things that scurried in the underbrush didn't seem to move like anything they had heard so far. And everywhere there were more of the totems, painted masks in bright colors, leering with frightening faces decorated with candles, bones, beads, and feathers. This was a place made so that those who came near would fear to go any deeper, a place that you could feel was sacred ground. Finally, Burl came to a halt at a place where tangled, thorny vines had clumped together to form a solid wall. The plant life began to slither and writhe at his approach, and pulled itself away, creating a portal through. On the other side, there was a sparkling riot of color. Bright jungle flowers crept up elegantly carved posts. Green fields of medicinal herbs swayed in a gentle breeze, turned golden in beams of sunlight. Cut logs hewn with icons floated in stone pools, speckled with cheerfully colored mushrooms, all in a miasma of pollen that danced in the breeze. The wicked and unwelcoming tones of the forest behind fell away, and all of them found themselves holding their breaths in awe of what they saw.
This is the Soul Garden.
Welcome to Swords Against Madness, an experiment in gonzo storytelling and solo role-playing. I'm playing a solo game of swords and wizardry, amplified by other classic role-playing games like Traveller, and accompanied by solo role-playing tools like the Mythic Game Master Emulator. First I play the game, then I turn it into a psychedelic sword and planet audio drama for your entertainment. Swords and Wizardry is based on the original 1974 through 1977 rules to Dungeons & Dragons. It is trippy, fast-paced, and lethal, just the way I like it. There will be no protection for player characters when the dice decide that their number is up. But I do keep the story PG, or at least what passed for PG in the 1980s. If you didn't see it in Temple of Doom, Goonies, or Gremlins, you won't hear about it here. So reload that three-bladed sword. Get comfortable in your studded leather kirtle or your chainmail bikini. Fire up the wizard band. It's time to get weird. Before I dive into what's going to be a very chaotic episode, I wanted to cover a few things about how my characters are coming along. In the podcasting medium, it often works a lot better if player characters can level up between sessions. That's what many of my idols like Simon from Legend of the Bones and John from Tale of the Manticore do. But the rules in old Dungeons & Dragons require a character to spend a few days in downtime in a town to train up and gain their next level. By the time AD&D had been completely released in 1979, this had been made into a very solid loop. Characters would go into the dungeon, they'd acquire a bunch of treasure, which would also help determine their experience points. Then they would have a level-based requirement for upkeep. Wizards would need to do research. Thieves would need training. Paladins would need to do charitable work, and so on. And then if they wanted to level up, they also had a significant amount of gold they had to put down and some time they had to spend away from adventuring. And so, after a few adventures, your pocketbook would suddenly just plummet down again. And if your characters wanted to maintain a good lifestyle, they would have to go back into the dungeon. In fact, if you didn't spend time going into the dungeon, your character could end up starving or getting sick because they weren't keeping up. That's not necessarily going to be great entertainment in a podcast, however. And so, I'm going to compromise. I'm going to say that anytime my characters have a chance to spend overnight in a safe place around other people, they have a chance to level up. And so I was very excited to go over Myria and Edric's experience points thus far, and found both of them were just skirting the edge of their next level. Given that I know what's coming, it was really tempted to give them a little extra push, but I could simply find no way to make these characters any more powerful, any more prepared, without compromising the integrity of my game. Which, I'll be honest, has me very worried in this case. The creatures my party are facing are a homebrew monster called a Ravening Caterpillar. Ravening Caterpillars are inspired at least in part by an AD&D monster called the Tenebrous Worm. They are massive, minivan-sized caterpillars that eat just about anything they can see. Now, the Tenebrous Worm in AD&D also does damage to anything that gets too close because of toxic filaments it exudes from its skin. But I wanted something that felt more vital, more alive, something that felt like it was part of the jungle, something bright and green and poisonous. And so, my caterpillars instead regenerate like trolls, and have very similar statistics. The Ravening Caterpillar has 4 hit dice. It can bite for 1d6 damage or make a ranged attack with Silk, which immobilizes the target. The creature has poisonous spines made out of condensed hairs around its body, and any creature who attacks with a melee weapon takes 1d2 damage and must save versus poison or die. The creature regenerates like a troll, meaning it regains 1 hit point every round unless it was damaged by something like fire or acid. The one saving grace about these creatures is that they're dumber than dirt and move extremely slowly. I've given them a movement rate of 15 feet per round. I also made the number that appeared at any given time only 1d4. And so when I rolled for this encounter, when I rolled that the halflings had a monster they needed to eliminate, I rolled that die and hoped for the best, and instead got a 4. So here I am with a group of 1st through 3rd level characters facing off against some truly impressive monsters. This is the point where I need to be as smart and as tactical as I possibly can. Wish me luck. At the heart of this garden was the juju tree, a banyan that stretched so high up that they had to crane their necks to see the top, and whose branches were so wide that the entire meadow was covered in sun-dappled spots because of it. It was festooned with the painted skulls of the halflings' elders. Bags with wishes expressed in herb and flower dangled from its boughs. Masks, totems, the history of the people were carved and painted onto its wood. And the roots were covered in fungus of every description possible. A tunnel large enough for a man to walk through had been bored through the heart of this stump, and inside it hung a brass lantern that glowed with a black flame. Even Raxon, who had never touched magic in his life, could feel the power here. And he knew that this was the very heart of the halflings community and its spirituality. A testament to nature in all of its bloody terrors. But it was marred. A vast, fleshy green grub crept along its side, ripping away at bark, bite after bite. Another tore at the roots, ripping up wood and fungus with massive grinding jaws. A third off to one side munched its way slowly through medicinal herbs, without any care for what it was tearing from the earth. and a fourth sat at the edge of a great stone basin in which strange plants grew tangled with twisted sticks around a stone idol. They were acid green with poison yellow rings marking up and down their body, and great dark purple spines running like a ridge along their back. Long feathery pink antennae emerged just above their beaked face, and glittering compound eyes regarded the party without turning their great heads. Two halfling gardeners crouched behind a nearby tree stump shouted and wailed in despair, seeing these creatures devour all their hard work. Occasionally they whipped stones out of slings that bounced harmlessly off of the rubbery flesh of the great creatures. As the fourth caterpillar heaved itself up on the stone basin and began tearing at the plants growing within, one of the halflings rushed over and tugged on Kale's arm, speaking in rapid halfling. Hold on, slow down. This one's saying that the big one right there on the giant stone, it's eating the sacred herbs they use to allow their shamans to be the mounts of the gods. What on earth does that mean, do you suppose? As they stood there dumbfounded, trying to fathom how they were going to get these beasts to go anywhere, the one eating the sacred plants suddenly recoiled. It thrashed around, making a keening noise for a moment. It began to bloat, grow even larger. Its flesh took on a purplish hue as steam began pouring off of its body. One of the masks that hung from the tree wobbled and fell, plummeting down towards the creature and landing on it. A wreath of fire burst around the mask as it took its position directly above the caterpillar's head.
What's happening?
I don't know. Stories say that the local halflings use sacred herbs to allow the gods of nature to pour into their bodies. But I didn't think a caterpillar could use them.
The caterpillar has been possessed by a Gestalt consciousness, a manifestation of the local continuum's beliefs about nature.
Please, tell me that the local halflings consider nature to be a kind and bountiful nurturer.
Twisting balls of purple fire where eyes ought to be gazed through the mask, as the strangely mutated caterpillar assessed its surroundings with an alien intelligence.
What have we here, huh? Much tasty morsels.
The creature turned its head towards the two nearest caterpillars and made a strange spitting sound. Both the caterpillars began to writhe, crashing against a sudden tangle of thick, sticky silken strands that not even their oily bodies could escape. Both creatures were clearly panicked as it edged closer towards them. One managed to tear free and climb slightly higher up the tree, only to get tangled again higher up the tree. Once it was nearly on top of its entangled victim, the strange possessed being reared up and opened its mandibles far wider than it should have been able to. The party was briefly treated to the vision of swirling stars and nebulae inside the creature's gullet before it reared down and consumed the head of the other giant caterpillar in a spray of yellow ichor. When it rose from its meal, still dripping with yellow gore, they could feel its attention fall upon them like a weight. Only Raxon managed to find the courage to speak at first.
I don't know who or what you are, but I promise you, we are not food.
Oh, but you are a brave little bite.
The creature moved its heavy, bloated body further down the roots, coming a few steps closer to the party. Its antennae, now wreathed in strange green and purple flames, twitched towards them. Gritting his teeth, Raxon stepped between the rest of the party and the creature, drawing his blade.
We have no problem with you devouring those creatures on the tree and in the garden. But we will fight you if you come any closer. And we will win.
Oh, and so brave too. Maybe I eat your courage, huh?
It was then Edric, letting out a long, slow sigh as he did so, who put down his staff and walked gingerly in front of his allies, his hands outstretched in a placating gesture. There's no need for conflict, Great Spirit. We see your power, and we know we are but leaves before you. But we have far greater value than mere nutrition. Perhaps we can offer you a bargain? A source of food? Kale, half dropping his sword, was gobsmacked. Are you crazy? What the hell do we have that it would eat? Shh, maybe I can get it to eat some gorum. A creature like that could probably destroy them.
You have pretty words, tasty little leaf.
The creature now loomed above them. Even though it hadn't moved much further, it seemed to grow bigger. And its presence took up far more space than any physical body possibly could. The weight of its psychic power fell over them, almost crushing their minds with the sheer force of its attention. And Miria felt the twin flames of its eyes boring into her.
You do have something. I feel it in this one's brain. A big, bad spirit hiding in such a small space. Give him to me, girl. I will take its power.
I do not wish to be consumed by this entity.
You can destroy starships single-handedly. Are you really afraid of this thing? Is it really a threat?
Yes. I do not wish you to give me to it.
Miria could feel the all-knowing's fear pervade her. Different and alien from any she had ever experienced before. More intense. More existential in its nature. Could this thing really be a god? She pushed down his fear, embraced her own, and then slowly exhaled it. No, she'd met things that had called themselves gods before. Didn't the people of this island at one point think she might be one?
Now why would I do that?
It would get me out of your head. You would no longer have to find the device.
Do not make me wait, girl. Give me that spirit in your head.
Don't worry. After all we've been through, I'm not going to feed you to an oversized grub. I aim to keep my promise. If you want him, come take him.
I love it when they choose the hard way.
So you want to play tonight? No group, no problem. This is Solo Quest Party of One. I'm Vince. Here, you learn solo RPGs by watching them work. One character, a few dice, and a clear plan. I show you fast tools that keep the scenes moving. Oracles, yes or no calls, random events, and clean logs. You see every roll, every choice, and how I rule at the table. We run short tests and full campaigns. Basic Fantasy 4e, Mythic Emulator, one-page emulator, and more. I share house rules that cut setup time. I use simple sheets you can copy and play. Each episode gives you something concrete, a scene list, a quick rule, or a table ruling that you can use. You watch how I frame scenes, track goals, and push risks. You see how to end a session on a hook, then pick up strong next time. Want to start fast? Look at all the things I've been doing. Check it out for inspiration. Pick a character concept, record, roll, and go. Subscribe here on the YouTube channel or on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts, wherever you find this available. And join me for every session. Solo roleplay is simple, you can do this, so let's roll dice together.
So let's just talk about the crazy things that Mythic Game Master Emulator just pulled off of me. As I was entering the scene, I rolled a d10 and got under my chaos factor. That means that wild and strange things are afoot. So, what kind of strange things? Something PC negative, apparently. And then I rolled for a meaning of the event to give me a clue, and it gave me the most straightforward answer I could have possibly asked for. Food dispute. Okay, is there another monster in the garden that is fighting with the caterpillars? I gotta know. Okay, well then, are the caterpillars fighting with each other? I got an extreme yes. Okay, so how is it extreme? This is where things took a twist. I asked it, okay, so how is it extreme? I rolled an event meaning and got develop good. Develop good? Okay, so I stopped and scratched my head about that one. What if we played around with the meaning of the word good, because this has to be PC negative? Well, where does good come from? At least in some interpretations, people say it comes from the word godly. Develop godliness? Develop godhood. Well, they are eating a whole bunch of herbs used by voodoo-inspired halflings. What if one of them managed to get itself into a trance by eating hallucinogens? This is more a sign of how warped my brain is than anything else, I understand. But that idea just sounded too cool not to use. So now we have a caterpillar possessed by some kind of Loa. What does that look like? Well, I decided that it needed to have some nature powers. And so I gave it spellcasting like a 5th level druid. I added a couple of hit dice, making it even more terrifying, and then I increased its damage and the potence of its poison. So this is very bad for the PCs insofar as suddenly something far smarter and far more powerful than what they had run into before is hanging around. On the other hand, and I verified this with Mythic Game Master Emulator, it is eating the other caterpillars. I asked, is there anything else I need to know? I got oppress liberty. Well, at least that gave me a sense of tactics. The caterpillars already have the ability to spit webs at something to make it hold still. But the spell web, which is available to druids in swords and wizardry, that sounded like it would be a perfect choice. It would immobilize its targets and then take bites out of them. So I added that to its spell list along with a few other spells that were essentially oppressive and gave it a huge tactical bonus, like the absolutely lethal combination of darkness and fairy fire. Darkness creates a bubble where light can't enter, but fairy fire creates a magical flame around someone that can be seen through any darkness, meaning he could see them and they couldn't see him. Looking back on it, I probably shouldn't use so much imagination in designing the terrors I throw at my player characters, at least if I don't want to record a TPK. I named this terror the Dread Silkworm, and it has become by far my favorite custom monster of all time. I immediately started running this as a combat, one where it was attacking the other 2 closest giant caterpillars. Using web, it immobilized one and immediately ate it, leaving the other trapped. Then I put a pause in the combat as it finally addressed the player characters, now that they had a sense of what they were up against. As you can see, it didn't go well. When combat resumed, I decided to put a timer on it to make it even more intense. The ravening caterpillar it had trapped in a web would break out in 1d6 rounds. Because, for some masochistic reason, I felt the need to turn up the heat just that little bit more. So let's see who survived and what was left. The vast caterpillar slouched towards them, causing the ground to shake as it approached. The swirling violet flames that stood for its eyes flared up. Raxon cursed, as suddenly all of them were limbed in a strange rippling flame, crackling like St. Elmo's fire across their skin. But whatever was happening to him, he still had fight in him. Raxon loosed 2 arrows. One bounced off of the creature's rubbery hide, but the second sank into the great, milky compound eye, barely peeking out from behind the mask. The creature jerked in pain, and there was a spray of glowing, vitreous humor.
You will be punished for that.
The singing of Raxon's bowstring was joined by the clatter of Kale's crossbow, although his quarrel did no more damage than the first arrow that Raxon had shot. Miria had no time to think of clever strategies. She only wanted to slow down its approach. Calling forth on new magic she had been working on, she slung a tangled web in front of the creature, hoping to capture it like a caterpillar in a spider's web. But the creature, coming on like a freight truck, couldn't be slowed. It simply got silk tangled over its lower body as it advanced. She glimpsed at Edric, who was preparing a spell of his own. He made a gesture as if he were throwing, and suddenly the creature did arch back. Its mask had lit up like a bright beacon, filling the whole place with an eerie light. It thrashed left and right, trying to get the light clear of its eyes. It was blind. Now was their chance. Raxon drew and fired as swiftly as he could. Another arrow bounced off, another sinking into the soft flesh at the base of the mandible. Another crossbow quarrel launched by Kale sank into the flesh under its chin. A desperate slingstone launch from Edric bounced off of the creature's rubbery hide. Unsure of what else to do, Miria cast her sleep spell, but it simply washed over the being, unable to affect it. Spirits don't sleep, and something this big was far more powerful than her magic could manage. The hulking caterpillar reared up and shook, sending arrows and bolts flying out of its flesh, and they watched with horror as the holes left in the creature that were dripping glowing ichor suddenly closed of their own account. And then with a deep rumbling noise, it wove its own magic, and the light that Edric had used to blind it went out. But in spite of its rapid healing, it was clear that the caterpillar was wounded. It was quivering, unstable. It swiftly slouched over to a nearby tree to get itself some cover. That gave the game away.
Focus up. We've got to hurt it faster. We can wound it faster than it can heal.
No sooner had it said this, however, than the great creature spat at him, covering him in a sticky glob of silk that pinned him to the ground.
Keep shooting!
Another of Kale's bolts bounced harmlessly off of the creature's flesh. Edric threw his sling over a nearby branch and crouched down, fishing through his backpack, pulling out flasks of oil and tearing strips off of the hem of his robe. I remember when Nala was treating you, she said burns are harder to heal. Perhaps it will be slower if we burn it.
Good idea.
Miria whipped her laser out of her pocket, but rather than aiming at the great fleshy creature coming at them, she took aim at the silk dangling off of it. There was a bright flash as the silk caught fire. The flame rippled across the creature's tissue where the web clung to it, causing it to writhe and roar in agony. Raxon growled and flexed until he managed to tear himself free of the silk gluing him to the ground and readied his bow again. Crossbow bolts and arcs of concentrated light swirled past the great creature as it flinched away from their attacks behind the tree. But one attack it simply couldn't avoid. Edric hurled a flask with a lit wick. It hit the tree and splashed, pouring liquid fire across the body of the great silkworm. The flaming eyes of the caterpillar who would be god flickered as he lost concentration to the pain of the flames, its magic suddenly stammering. Diving to one side, Raxon drew another arrow and fired, putting another hole in the great compound eye he'd already punctured once.
And stay wounded.
While neither Miria nor Kale could get a clear shot with crossbow or laser, Edric aimed his next bottle carefully. This one broke across the creature's flesh, and suddenly it was all ablaze and not with magical flames. The silkworm dropped to the ground, rolling, trying to put out the flames, now hissing, screeching, and chittering like an insect, rather than speaking like a god. Now was a time for a change in tactics. Raxon signaled Miria to keep firing, and as her bolts of killing light sailed over the creature's head, Kale and Raxon circled around, readying their bows to catch the creature from behind. They froze, however, as they heard the snapping of silk, as the two other caterpillars had finally chewed and strained themselves free. Rather than turning to the nearest prey, however, they both turned and headed directly for the dread silkworm, snapping their maws, ready to consume their corrupted sibling. Realizing how tenuous their situation was in, Edric practiced the gestures and the arcane intonations that Miria had taught them. The magic was alien to him, but he had always had a gift for wielding the energies of the cosmos. He hurled a magic pulse at one of the two caterpillars, which wobbled unsteadily, and then was still, asleep. As the possessed caterpillar hunched, trying to change its angle, avoiding the laser bolts of Miria and the arrows of Raxon and Kale. It failed to notice the other caterpillar until it was too late. The ravening caterpillar reared up, opened its mandibles wide, and drove them hard into the back of its possessed brethren, tearing at flesh. There was a moment as the two of them locked, wrestling, and then the mad godlike being collapsed, the fire beginning to fade from its eyes, its body quivering.
You killed us now, little monsters. But I am the forest. I am the hunger. One day, I will feast upon you.
And with that, the flames went out. The body quivered and relaxed. As if detecting something the rest could not feel, the caterpillar arched backwards, getting as far away as it could with its slow movements. As the body exploded into a tangle of vines, flowers, herbs, and fungus, slowly rotting away until there was nothing left but a vibrant mass of living plants. Swords Against Madness is played, written, and performed by Brian C. Rideout. Editing, mastering, and audio production were from Stormhead Productions. All sound effects are licensed from Pixabay. The opening theme to this episode was King Edward by Mr. Smith, made available through the Free Music Archive. It also included the songs Acid Core by Jumping Bunny, Zulu Sunrise by Lumine Wave, Acid Lands by Emron, The Wanderer by Obliques, Deep Forest by NNC Channel, War Metal by Light Saturation, Brain Implant by Soundbay, Suspense Tension Background by Delo Music, Dark Marimba by Grand Project, Stylish Blues Rock Wild West version by Brightest Avenue, Outlaws Reckoning by Mood Mode, Valhalla by Nakar Alexander, and Heavy Cyberpunk Metal by Baertz. All from Pixabay and used under their license. It also featured the voice talents of John Cohen from Tale of the Manticore and Carl White from the amazing solo RPG podcast The Lone Adventurer. The Lone Adventurer blends high intrigue, spy action, and mystery, like James Bond only played in D&D. Carl, I can't thank you enough for providing your vocal talents to this episode. I also have this incredible listener review to read to you from Myth and Moon. They write, with stakes higher than a Trossi Syndicate bounty, you're sure to enjoy the stories in this far-flung, off-kilter space opera. Brian does a great job narrating and writing the coy and capable central heroine Miria as she navigates ancient prophecies and dim-witted super mutant brutes, an amalgam of Stargate, Conan the Barbarian, with a dash of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Swords Against Madness is a must-listen for those who want surreal sci-fi action in their pulp swords and sorcery. That is some of the highest praise I could have ever asked for. Thank you so much. If you want to see maps, spells, monsters, and character sheets, you can find them at swordsvmadness.stormheadproductions.ca. And if you want to get in touch with me, email Brian at stormheadproductions.ca. Or get in touch on X at swordsvmadness. And until next time, play hard, roll high, and think weird.